good afternoon, good evening for most folks. Uh, Welcome here. I'm really glad that we're able to be with you today. And we were talking about some very interesting things in the chat time with the Tim. That's a lot of the work that Sarah and I do with the Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. And today we're coming toward the end of the school year. Some folks have already finished. And we're talking about how did we get through it, especially in a year like this. We're going to talk about some things that will support us in maximizing our time as instructional coaches in our schools, and really just learn from each other in the room. So just a little bit about us so you know who we are. My name is Sherry Loftin, and I am a National Instructional Technology Trainer for our Verizon Innovative Learning Schools. And just some about my educational background, like I'm in St. Louis, Missouri in the US. I did my educational work in Chicago Public Schools. I've taught every grade from 2nd through 8th grade, most of those grades multiple times. I've been an instructional coach. I've been an administrator, and I've been a middle school teacher recently during the pandemic. I've brought project-based learning and emerging technologies to many schools and trained thousands of folks in that nationwide. So I'm just really excited to share what we have with you all today. And we also have with us Sarah.
Hello, y'all. You heard me talking a little bit earlier, but I'm Sara Bordelon. I am, just like Sherry, I'm a national instructional technology trainer. And unlike Sherry, though, I'm not based in St. Louis. I am based in Colorado, but all of my teaching was done in Houston. So I was a middle school and high school teacher, so a secondary teacher, specifically math. I didn't get too far outside of the math classroom for several years. And then I was an instructional coach, both tech and math. I've been in leadership. And yeah, that's me. And now I am working here at Digital Promise and Bill, supporting teachers from the East Coast of the US all the way to the West Coast of the US. And like Sherry said, Sherry and I are the two on the training team who are in charge of all of the TIM professional learning. So it was interesting that you brought TIM up, because that is something that we know very intimately. So we're looking forward to spending the next hour with y'all.
Thanks, Sarah. And just a little bit about our shared understanding. Stephanie talked about that before, but we're just asking that you mute your mic, but we believe that the smartest person in the room is always the room. So at those points where you have expertise, please just unmute and share. We're a smaller community today, so we'll just find you. You don't have to use the hand raise feature. We're asking that you're mindful and that you're present and that you're kind to yourself and to others. Also, this is a fully accessible session. So if you'd like to see the closed captions, you can hit the CC Live transcript button at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be able to see the closed captions. So just a little bit about our agenda for today. We're going to, since we got to talk and get to know each other and just kind of hang out at the beginning, we're going to skip our inclusion activity. We're going to use that as our inclusion activity, but we're going to really move into what this idea of reclaiming your time and the big rocks of coaching. And then we're going to really move into the values, the goals, the time management matrix of it all. We're going to look at priorities and professional boundaries. And we're going to look at very practical strategies that we can use and platforms before going into an opportunity for us to share and crowdsource solutions to challenges that we found this year with each other. And then we'll share those out and we'll close for today. So let's go ahead and move on with our reclaiming our time. Again, this year, I know there was a lot going on as far as really just acclimating students to being social again, and all of the things that came with that as far as their social emotional health, all of those different things that came into happening. We saw that with our teachers trying to support our students, and then us trying to support our teachers. And what I always like to say is, so many things happen in society. Our community as a whole, we're hurting right now. We've had things happen in our country that are really tough on schools, and even recently with what happened to the children in Texas. So what I like to say is what happens in the broader society, what happens is a lot of times the problems in society, they like to take it and sit it at the steps of the schoolhouse door. And we have to deal with that. And that tugs on our time. So what do? That's where we're coming in with, let's reclaim the time. Let's figure out how to practically make this work for us. So now we'll look at this video, and I want you to tell me, I want you to think about, when we look at this, how this relates to your own coaching this year, and what that means for what we can do going forward as we look at other strategies. So think about this and compare it to your own life and your own coaching this year. And we'll talk about this. So enjoy.
Your name is?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. You have a work life?
I do.
Family life as well? Mm-hmm. Children?
Not yet.
Not yet. What's the nature of your work assignment?
I direct an international firm.
An international firm? Mm-hmm. So you really are interfacing with all kinds of people in the firm and outside the firm.
That's right.
You want a rich personal life and a rich family life. Do you ever feel like you get bogged down in the thick of thin things?
Yes.
Well, that might be analogous to all these little, small things that tend to fill our life. And that just little by little, they just accumulate. Now, your job, you can't go above this, is to get all those large rocks in the jar. Good luck. What's that one called?
Q2, planning, preparation.
Right. Planning, preparation, prevention, and empowerment. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next rock she's putting in there is called relationships and family. We didn't look at that third rock you put in there. That's employment, some key employment issue, and then you put major projects here. I can't get it above there.
I haven't worked it yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's called service, community, church. Do you ever feel like this?
Yes.
How many feel like this? By moving the little things around, you might squeeze in one more of those big major things. It's almost. Wow, that is good. You know, if it doesn't fit, force it. Here's something that's called urgent and important. It's a quadrant 1 thing that is blindsiding you, that it's your biggest client, that if you don't get back to that client now, you've given up your vacation. No. And you have no special block of time just for yourself. I'll tell you what you can do if you want to.
What's that?
You can take a whole different approach. You have a totally fresh bowl. You can work out of a different paradigm altogether.
Well, then I'd rather put these in the bottom and then pour the little pebbles on top.
Employment.
Big opportunity.
Big opportunity.
Important and urgent. Block of time. Those young children keep looking at me. Glad my husband's not here. Now I dump these in there.
Okay. That's great.
right. So just curious, did that bring up any ideas? I know it was kind of funny, some of the things that she was talking about and he was, but did that bring up anything for you when you're thinking about your life and what your year's been like?
Well, I was watching the video and I was amazed at all those little green, whatever bubbles they had, they still fit in. So if you structure, I'm thinking my instructional coach on, but if you structure your goals around your vision and your beliefs and your morals, those other things will still fit in and benefit from it. That was so cool. I needed that. Sorry.
I love that, Aggie. That I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same, right? Anyone else? I want to come back to what you said, Aggie. And you can feel free to throw anything in the chat too. Make sure I'm keeping up with the chat. Belinda
dropped. Yeah, something in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love it because she's saying, I love the concept of a priority, kind of talking about what Aggie was saying too, taking time to put and to have things in first and how the rocks all fit when you do that. So I think that's really big, especially because the way that our day works, anybody who works in schools knows that we're being pulled in a million directions. If you're an administrator, a lot of times, and if you're a coach, a lot of times folks who've not been outside of the classroom will look envious at folks who are outside of the classroom and they think, oh, what are you doing? But when I was outside of the classroom, I'm doing so much. I'm being pulled in so many different directions and I'm coming early and staying late. And schools will continue to pull that time from us because, in other industries, it's interesting. We're not peddling paper. This isn't the office or something like that, right? What we're in the business of human development. And sometimes we do have things that are life or death. It could be a student with a crisis or someone who needs an EpiPen. So it's like we're constantly having to look at the difference between false and real threats and what's urgent, what's important, all of those different things. So we'll look at that. I'm looking at what Matthew said. He said, I believe curating and prioritizing work is key. Yeah, right? And so moving on, something that Audre Lorde says, and she says, if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be, I can't see it, there we go. I'll be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive. And I think that's a beautiful language, but it also talks about just the way our life is structured. If we're going from thing to thing, crisis to crisis, when are we going to say, this is what I stand for, this is what I want to do with my time? And it's now the buck has to stop. It's for us to decide. So we'll look into how do we do that in this climate.
Firstly, before I talk about how we do this in this climate, John wanted to talk about the reference to the paper. So typically, like when you think of office work, you think of like, you're dealing with like spreadsheets and paper, like contracts and stuff like that. But being in education, we're really in like the business of, supporting humans and growing humans, whether they be humans who are, in grade school or humans, as coaches. We are working with, adult learners. And so that's kind of what we're not just pushing paper, we are growing people and supporting people.
Sarah, I like that one better because I was actually talking about the TV show, The Office.
Oh,
and on the TV show, The Office, it's such a silly TV show, John, and they're actually selling paper. It's called Dunder Mifflin, and they keep creating all these problems. And I'm like, we don't have a job like that where it's frivolous. We have a job where the stakes are really high. So I was making a joke from that TV show, The Office.
Got it. And like Stephanie said, they both work. So talking about how do we get this done? And so for me, I really appreciate this slide because I don't know about you, but for me, I personally need my personal values and my work values to align. If they are not in alignment, I really, really struggle with work. And it also ends up affecting my personal life as well. If those two things aren't aligned and like don't support each other. I know some people, they don't necessarily have that need, but both of those values need to be really like, I need to make sure that they're reconciled and that they complement each other and that they match. So when we're thinking about these, I want you to be thinking about, what are your personal values? What are your coaching values? And if you want to kind of like explore your personal values a little bit more, linked in this deck is a personal values assessment, which is really great. And in thinking about this personal values assessment, know that a lot of the times for a lot of people, especially people who go into coaching, your personal values really influence how you coach, because you think about how you would want to be treated or how you would want to be coached. And then that really tends to like bleed into your coaching work. And once you can identify those personal core value or personal values, that kind of leads you to your coaching core values. So I really encourage you to take that, just, when you have some time, take that personal values assessment. We'll give you a little bit of time in a little bit, and this could be one of the things that you do during that time. The next thing is, again, just talking about coaching and personal goals. So this brings us back to, what are your personal goals? What are your coaching goals? And setting those clear goals really relieves anxiety, which is exactly what I was talking about. I need both of those things to be aligned. Otherwise, I struggle at work and I struggle in my personal life with anxiety. So I also, as I am able to name and identify both those personal and coaching goals, I then, again, when there's a name associated with them, I am able to kind of like work towards achieving them and name some action steps that I can take and some priorities that I can identify that help me with that and really help me internalize that work, which helps with that intrinsic motivation and that dopamine flow. Like, right, when I check something off my list, when I accomplish a goal, like I really get a rush.
I want to jump in on that too, Sarah, because I love how Sarah and I are different folks. Our minds think differently. And Sarah was talking about how she gets anxiety, so she wants to do things right away. And I think that's where a lot of folks feel that sense of being overwhelmed. If there are too many things and you're trying to go from thing to thing, if you're not able to have enough time in the day, if you're doing those small rocks and then the big rocks come and it doesn't overflow into your personal life and things like that. I'm an adult, and I'm an adult with ADHD. And I did not find out that I had ADHD until I was teaching children and doing anecdotals and helping them get the help that they need. And I'm like, wait a minute, this looks familiar. Well, one of the things with us is the way dopamine works in our body. It's not that we don't have attention. It's more of an attention regulation disorder. Sometimes we pay too much attention to things that we're really interested in. But for us, the things that make us move are things that are challenging, challenging, interesting, new, or urgent. And so when things are urgent, that's what will make the cortisol and the dopamines go off in my brain. And now I am laser focused to get it done. So for me, what I need to do is set fake deadlines for myself, set fake times for appointments, set fake deadlines, because I am going to wait to the last minute. And that's because that's when, oh, it's urgent. Now my hormone has gone off. Now my brain is unlocked and I can think. So since I know that's the way I am, I plan for that and I make the fake times and fake deadlines. And then once I have panicked, I've done this work and it's gone a little bit over the deadline, I'm like, oh, that was a fake time. I'm actually on time now, or something like that. So it's just, we're looking at yourself and you're seeing what your goals are. You're able to better structure how your day is going to work, where you have more control of it and it doesn't have control over you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to identify that there's several different types of people and we all kind of organize and prioritize our things differently. Like Sherry was saying, she needs to set fake deadlines, where I really need to set a schedule, because as soon as something gets assigned to me, I'm like, I have to get this done right now. And so everything is urgent in my mind. And well, there's not enough hours in the day to accomplish all of those things. So what I really have to do is I have to schedule out my task. And I know that, okay, I can't get this done today, but I do know that I will be getting it done on Thursday of next week or something like that. So then I'm able to lower my anxiety that way, and prioritize that way. By not just making everything urgent like it is kind of in my mind. So I think it's important to know that people operate differently, and you need to come up with systems that support the way that you work, just as well as like kind of remembering that the teachers that you work with also all kind of work differently. Like you could have a Sherry type teacher, or you could have a Sarah type teacher, and you have to support both of them, and that also has to kind of, like fit into your way of working as well. So, or it could be in, disagreements with your way of working. So the struggle is very much real. Which is why it is so important to think about your values, your goals, and your priorities. So right here, and I love this, and I almost kind of wish it was a whole, like, just one page that said values, goals, and priorities, because this is how it works, right? We're able to identify our values, and then the values that we have really drive and help us create our goals. And then our goals is what helps us identify our priorities, right? So that way we get that personal values are really aligning with your work priorities, and hopefully diminishing your anxiety and kind of like keeping you in that working harmony. So some of the ways that we can identify, again, we talked about that personal values assessment, but in thinking about goals and priorities for teachers and for yourself as well, is to get those videos of teacher and student interactions, or even as a coach, you can video yourself interacting with a teacher. So you could get videos of coach to teacher interaction. And then if you are working on setting goals with your teachers, bring in their lessons, their projects, their unit plans, or let this drive your work as a coach. Look at your teacher's lessons, look at your teacher's projects, look at their upcoming unit plans. How does that align with your values? How does that align with your goals? How does that then drive your priorities? And again, with everything on this list, these are all data points that you can use to help you figure out those priorities, and making sure that those priorities are in line with your goals, which are then ultimately aligned with your values and the work that you are hoping to accomplish with your teachers. With that being said, and this goes back to kind of really what Sherry and I were just saying when we were both sharing our different kind of like working styles. If everything is important, then nothing is. And I've heard this so many times, and it wasn't really until about 3 years ago that it really clicked for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true. I can't fit everything in. I can't do it all. And again, if we act like everything is an emergency, then essentially nothing is an emergency, right? Because it just it raises that bar. And then also going back to what Sherry said, we do actually have some real life emergencies in education, right? So we need to make sure, again, that we're really prioritizing our work.
Yeah, I really love that. And then as we move to our time management matrix, I think that idea of if everything is important, nothing is, goes to what Matthew talked about in the chat. And he's talking about this guilt. Like he talked about sometimes he feels guilty if he can't get to everyone because he wants to support everyone. Aki talked about how she's aligning her work with her values, and she wants to support students. That means she needs to be in there supporting teachers. But it's almost like that other saying that they say is when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, right? And our time is finite, but how are we able to put together structures to where everyone is getting what they need? It's almost like thinking about the idea of equity when we think about time, just making sure we may not need to be there, but as long as we get that resource to that person when they need it, then so when we look at this time management matrix, do we have any Stephen Covey fans out there? Who are the folks who are the 7 habits people? Any 7 habits people? And B, I love it. So in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, Stephen Covey, he's famous for really highlighting this matrix. It's also called the Eisenhower matrix, but it really breaks up every task, and you kind of think about those little green rocks that we looked at. And so the tasks can be broken up into 4 quadrants: the important and necessary. So those are like your urgent and important. So a kid needs an EpiPen, a student needs 911 called. Okay, that's important and urgent. It has to happen now. It goes in front of everything. Then you have urgent but not important. Those are the emails. Those are all these little tasks. Get this done by this date. They want you to have it done now, but it may not be that important. I like to use, I say with these things, these need to fall where they need to fall, because what's that saying? Lack of planning on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on mine, right? When someone waits to the last minute and they want you to do something right away. Then you have the important things, but that are not necessarily urgent. Now, that's in the effectiveness quadrant. That's where we want to spend a lot of our life's work. So that's where exercise, spending time with your loved ones, going to a basketball game, the things that add to the quality of your life, learning, getting a degree, but they're not urgent, but there's things that you need to do. Those are the things we put on the back burner. Those are the big rocks, but those are things that we have to schedule first because they matter, right? And then, of course, you have your non-urgent, your waste of times, but they feel good sometimes. TikTok is mine. I know it's embarrassing to say out loud sometimes, but I love it. What's yours? Is it TV? Whatever your thing is, that's where your quadrant 4 is. We want to stay out of that as much as possible, but like dessert, in moderation, right? So as we're moving through this time management matrix, here is a weekly planning template that is based off of the Stephen Covey idea. And it sort of goes back to what Matthew talked about, because Matthew, he plans his work on the weekend, which is what I do too when I'm in good stages of my life, Matthew, right? I love to do that. Here are some links. It's also in our slide deck, but I put it there. We'll be able to explore these in a little bit too. But there are links to something similar just like this, where you can create your own weekly schedule. You can put the different roles you play in your life and the goals related to those. About that, you can put your priorities at the top. They have places in there for you to think about sharpening the saw, things that are in quadrant 3 of effectiveness, the physical, mental, spiritual health, social and emotional health, all those different things, so that you can organize your social life and your life out in those ways. And then you can also put your appointments in there. So that's one of the ways. So we have things like that. You'll find one that works for you. But now let's talk about how to say no. We talked about when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. How do we put up those professional boundaries when we've created our priorities? So we have administrators in our building. We have so many people who need so many things from us, but we want to protect our time for priorities. So that comes in when we're doing things such as time blocking, or scheduling things in our weekly calendar, like Matthew does, where people can't schedule over that. Okay, so we're scheduling in those time blocks to also be available to others. So if we have that scheduled in, they can't say they can never get a hold of us. They know they can get a hold of us on these times, and we know we can mentally prepare for being available to others at that time. Let the urgent tasks fall in around those standing priorities, and then respect the boundaries of not only yourself but others. So if other people encroach on our boundaries, they'll get used to doing that, and we have to teach people how to treat us through how we interact with them. So we want to, if they're emailing us at night, let's email them back during the daytime, during work hours. And then we can use things such as the timing feature on emails or on Slacks so that you can make sure that your emails and your Slacks go off during the work hours so that other people aren't interrupted from their own personal lives either, just to respond to or think about work outside of those times. So that's what we want to do as we're creating those professional boundaries. People will acquiesce and start to know that they can't get a hold of you at any time if you start really focusing on that. I'm looking in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of good things in the chat. Sarah saying about the saying no piece. Yes, I know. That I have that up on my on my computer, you know, a little post-it that just kind of reminds me to do that. And then I see, oh, Matthew is getting into, this is what we want. So Matthew is getting into some practical strategies that we can use, and we're going to do that now. So he's talking about Calendly for appointments. We're going to go to that. Belinda's talking about how she schedules time for a walk every day, and she blocks that time out. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. Yes, right. Yes, scheduling time for ourselves, because if we're okay up here, right, and physically, we can be so much more for so many other people, right? We have to put on our own air mask first. I love that. Okay, so as we're moving on, we're going to now look at some of those strategies.
Yeah, and a couple of, well, Matthew, you brought this up. Using schedulers, Calendly is a great one. It's one that I have used in the past. There's also You Can Book Me or just Google. So if you are part of, like if your school uses the G Suite, that you use Google Calendar, or really if your school is really big on just calendars in general, like keeping their calendars up to date, you can, instead of getting Calendly or You Can Book Me, those are really nice user-friendly platforms. But you can also just use your Google Calendar and have people refer to that to see when you are free. And as you are setting up your calendar, you know, make sure you are using those time blocking techniques where you are scheduling your priorities first. So like for Belinda, one of her priorities is scheduling that daily walk, which that is also a priority for me as well. As I mentioned, I struggle to say no. So you can imagine that it's kind of difficult for me to also go on that walk, you know, to walk away and feel like I'm, I don't know why, because I know that I'm not. I know that it's good for me, and I know that it helps me with the work that I do, but I feel guilt walking away. So what I started doing when I first started, you know, like forcing myself to go on daily walks, is I would listen to a book that is about like a book study that I'm doing at work, or something that kind of relates to work. So I felt like I was still working on the walk. Now I do venture into, you know, fiction on my walks, or a good podcast here and there. But that was kind of the way that I originally like convinced myself that I could do that, because I was like still working, right? So whatever you got to do to trick your brain. There's also this awesome thing called the Pomodoro technique. It is kind of similar to, it's a way of like organizing your work time, I guess I would say. And there's some really awesome resources out there about this, and it's all about time intervals. So say, for example, you give yourself, you know, 10 minutes to do this, and you are going to work on this for 10 minutes. And that is all you can do for that 10 minutes. It is crazy the amount of work that you can get done when you use this technique. So we're going to give you some time to, if you want to explore this, highly encourage it. It is super awesome, and you can block time off for this technique.
Can I jump in here too?
Yeah.
On this Pomodoro piece? There's a website called FocusMate, and it's great for folks who just want to get some work done. And it's based off of this Pomodoro technique. It's structured that way. So you go to this website, it's free, and you decide, okay, I want a 25-minute session or a 50-minute session? Okay, 25-minute session. So you click the time that you want to do it, like right now, in 5 minutes, whatever. Someone else joins your time period, and you and one other stranger from across the world, you don't know who they are, you all both at the beginning of this 25 minutes state your intention. I'm going to work on this slide deck, or I'm going to work on practicing for an interview. And then both of y'all mute and you work on that for 25 minutes. And then the timer goes off and then you all tell each other what you did and then you log off. And I know it sounds so silly, but it is crazy how much work I can get done because when I'm around people I know, I want to talk. But this is one of those techniques. So we'll put that in there as something you can explore.
Yeah. And then Matthew talking about that flipped coaching. Flipped coaching is such a powerful idea. When I finally gave my I always talk about flipped teaching, right? But flipped coaching was a very new idea for me. And I really ended up utilizing it quite a bit. I will say that, when we went remote, I had to kind of use this. And it was really, really nice. I'm a huge fan of voice notes. I like to talk, and I don't necessarily always feel like typing things out captures my thinking perfectly. So I think that whole video text messaging feedback is really great, limiting those face-to-face meetings, because a lot of the times, yes, they are great. You form wonderful relationships with people, but sometimes when we are thinking about our time and everything, a face-to-face meeting just isn't going to cut it because they can get kind of off task, if you will. So these are some time management strategies and platforms that we really encourage you to look at. So we're going to give you right now a little bit of time to explore quite a bit of things. So we are going to put the screen that we were just showing back up. If you want to explore any of those platforms, remember those are things that can help you prioritize your time and organize your time. And also, oh, Sherry's got it. She has it all. So she dropped a link into the chat here, and here are some things that you can explore. Again, here is the all of the ones that we just talked about here. And then here is that personal values assessment. So we're going to give you about 7 minutes right now to explore these things. And then what we're going to do after this is we are going to jump into a breakout room where you can do a little bit of crowdsourcing and again, some talking with your peers. So 7 minutes on the clock, and we will see you back here again in 7 minutes. We really hope that you enjoyed exploring some of those. I know John shared a really great focus to do resource in the chat. If you found anything good in your exploration, we tried to keep it really open during this time so that you could kind of explore the ideas, but there's so many different add-ons and extensions and resources out there around all of this stuff, and finding kind of something that works for you in the way that you work and best complements your working style is really important. So we didn't want to limit you. Again, we hope that you enjoyed that time. If you found anything good, drop it in the chat. But what we're also going to do right now, if you don't want to share it in the chat, you can share it in a breakout room. So what we're going to do in this breakout room, and I know there's only a couple of you, I'm thinking, Sherry, did you make one or two? Two? So we're going to have 2 breakout rooms. And so in those breakout rooms, we're going to ask that you first introduce yourself. If you don't already know the person in your breakout room. And then we're kind of going to mastermind this up a little bit. And we're going to ask that you share a coaching challenge that you're currently having, or that you've had recently, or maybe that you anticipate having if you've already ended your school year, one that you anticipate kind of over the summer or starting next year. And then together, what you're going to do in that breakout room is you are going to offer ideas and or solutions for each person's challenge. So again, I would love if y'all could kind of have this conversation focused on, priorities, goal setting, scheduling your time, just surviving your general coaching day. Do you need to put those big rocks in first and then fill it in with those neon green, task? Do you maybe, is that kind of the solution to this? But what does that actually look like in the work that you're doing? So what we're going to do is we're going to give you 10 minutes in this breakout room to kind of, again, just share your challenges and seek out solutions from your peers. When we come back, we'll have a little reflection and a closeout for you. Hopefully you enjoyed that time. We know it was short, but we hope it was sweet. And if you want to share out any solutions that y'all came up with in your group, or kind of your thoughts around just time management, goal setting in general, we would love to hear from you. We have a little bit of time set aside for you to unmute and share.
I think we just mainly talked about just, you know, I can't even say it right, but curating and prioritizing time that is powerful to you, and how do you do that? And it's okay that there's gonna be some times where there's gonna be certain weeks where you're busier than others, and just kind of like not to make a big deal out of, you know, whether you're super busy or not, but just to, you know, ensure that you have that time available for yourself, as well as time just to get the tasks that you need done, but you don't need to kill yourself doing it. So
Yeah, I think that that's really important, Matthew, is like prioritizing that, and also knowing that like coaching in the work comes in waves, and recognizing that it comes in waves. And Sherry mentioned something earlier about, you know, like when I'm on, this is what I'm doing. And like, that's so true. Like when not only does coaching come in waves, but like my efficiency also comes in waves. Like sometimes I feel like I'm really like, I got this going on. I got everything is like firing at the right speeds and everything. And then other times I'm like, how was I hired for this position? I don't even know what I'm doing. So I think it's important to recognize and name like both of those kind of like things that change. Would anybody else like to share?
I just shared with the group that I took the values assessment, and I was surprised at how quickly they sent an 8-page document back to me. So it'll be interesting to read that and just see if it's, you know, if it's valuable and if I would send it on to others. I don't know yet. I haven't read it, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I love a good quiz about myself.
Yes, because everyone wants to know more about themselves. They're hoping the next book is going to tell them how to unlock the better version of their life. So yes, I really enjoyed what I found from that values assessment, and I thought it was pretty on point, Belinda. So I'm curious to see what yours will be like too.
Okay, with that being said, we really thank you for coming tonight. And I'll let Stephanie close out.
I do want to say one thing too before Stephanie comes on is we really do appreciate you all taking this time at the end of the year. And from all the work that you've done, if no one has told you today, you are already enough. So thank you for spending your time and being very present today.
And Sherry and Sarah, thank you so much for coming and sharing your expertise. This was so valuable and lots to think about. So first, if you're not a member of our Google group, please join. Just send me an email and I will add you to the group. Everyone is welcome to share and chat there. So if you have an idea, if you have a thought, please participate in that Google group. We also have 2 remaining special interest group meetings to close out the year. Both are going to be talking about planning for next school year. So if you are interested in participating in either of those, let me know and I can connect you with the facilitators. And then because this is our last whole group meeting for the year, we will please be in the lookout for a fall program survey. So over the summer, we're going to be developing a survey to get to know you better, what your wants and needs are as you move into the next school year, so that we can design a program that's really right for you. So when you see that email come through, please do be sure and respond. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening.